Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to go my review of Beach Blast 1992. Starting off the evening, we're going to our first match of the night. It is Scotty Flamingo versus Brian Pillman for the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship. Number one, man, I thought this was a good opening matchup to start Beach Blast 1992. Back and forth matchup between Scotty Flamingo and Brian Pillman, with Pillman keeping the pace of the match. Pillman was working on the arm of Scotty Flamingo. Pillman then hits a head scissors takedown on Scotty Flamingo. Pillman then with an axe handle off the apron on Scotty Flamingo. Scotty then gets up, hits a diving forearm off the middle rope on Pillman. Pillman then gets up, hits a slingshot crossbody on Scotty Flamingo. Scotty then goes for a top rope maneuver, but is met with a drop kick from Pillman. Scotty Flamingo then hits a power slam on Brian Pillman, and then Scotty Flamingo ultimately hits a knee drop off the top rope on Brian Pillman, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Scotty Flamingo. Hats off to Scotty Flamingo for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is the Tailor-Made Man versus Ron Simmons. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Tailor-Made Man and Ron Simmons, with Ron keeping the pace of the match. Ron Simmons ends up hitting a 3-point stance, and then Ron Simmons ultimately hits his signature power slam on the Tailor-Made Man, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Ron Simmons. Hats off to Ron Simmons for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is Greg Valentine versus Marcus Bagwell. I thought this was a good matchup as well. Back and forth matchup between Valentine and Bagwell, with Valentine keeping the pace of the match. Valentine then goes for a figure 4 leg lock on Bagwell, but Bagwell counters it into a roll up for a near fall. Then Greg Valentine ultimately applies another figure 4 leg lock on Marcus Bagwell, and your winner of the match by submission due to the figure 4 leg lock is Greg Valentine. Hats off to Greg Valentine for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is a Falls Count Anywhere match. It is Cactus Jack versus Sting. I thought this was a great match. One of the best rivalries, in my honest opinion, in WCW at that time between Cactus Jack and Sting. Cactus Jack hits a elbow drop off the apron on Sting that looked absolutely brutal. Cactus Jack was keeping the pace of the match. Cactus Jack ends up hitting Sting with a chair shot. Sting then hits Cactus Jack with a chair shot of his own. Cactus Jack then hits a double arm DDT on Sting for a near fall, but Sting hits a clothesline off the top rope on Cactus Jack, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Sting. Hats off to Sting for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a 30-minute Iron Man match. It is Rick Rude versus Ricky Steamboat. Number one, I thought this was a great matchup. Back and forth matchup between Rude and Steamboat, with Steamboat keeping the pace of the match. Steamboat applies a Boston Crab on Rude, but Rude breaks the hold. Rude then hits a high knee on Steamboat, pins for the 3. Rick Rude gets the first fall. Rude then hits Rude Awakening on Steamboat. Steamboat then pins for the 3, gets the second fall. Rude then hits a knee drop off the top rope, but Ricky ends up scoring the 3rd fall due to disqualification. Rude then goes for the cover after he hit the knee drop, pins for the 3. Rude gets another cover. Rude then hits a pile driver on Ricky Steamboat. Ricky then gets up, hits a tombstone pile driver on Rick Rude, pins him for the 3. Ricky gets another fall. Ricky then hits a superplex off the top rope on Rude. Ricky then hits a roll up, pins for the 3. Ricky gets another fall. Ricky then hits a Rude Awakening on Rick Rude, but Rude applies a sleeper hold on Ricky. Ricky breaks the hold, which breaks the hold by a roll-up, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match due to 4 falls to 3, Ricky Steamboat wins the match. Hats off to Ricky Steamboat for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Arn Anderson, Steve Austin, Bobby Eaton versus Dustin Rhodes, Barry Windham, and Nikita Koloff. I thought this was a good matchup as well. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Dustin, Barry Windham, and Nikita Koloff keeping the pace of the match. And your winners of the match by disqualification are Dustin Rhodes, Barry Windham, and Nikita Koloff. Hats off to Dustin Rhodes, Barry Windham, and Nikita Koloff for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of Beach Blast 1992. It is Terry Gordy and Dr. Death Steve Williams versus the Steiner Brothers for the WCW Tag Team Championships. Number one, I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the Steiners keeping the pace of the match. But this match ultimately ends in a time limit draw, and the Steiners retain the WCW Tag Team Championships at that time. A couple of things I'm going to say about Beach Blast 1992, man, before I get out of here. This was a decent event. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the best WCW event I've ever seen, but this event wasn't that bad, man. You got Scotty Flamingo, a.k.a. Raven, versus Brian Pillman for the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship. A lot of people probably don't realize that WCW at that time actually had a Light Heavyweight Championship. They also had United States Tag Team Champions as well. Obviously, the Light Heavyweight Championship didn't last long. I think it ended up turning into the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, which, honestly, the Cruiserweight division for WCW was absolutely just awesome back in the day, man. Brian Pillman at that time was carrying the Light Heavyweight Championship, but Flamingo ended up hitting the roll-up, or hit the knee drop on Pillman, pins him for the 3, and Scotty Flamingo, a.k.a. Raven, becomes the new, at that time, Light Heavyweight Champion. Then you have the Tailor-Made Man versus Ron Simmons. It was a decent match. I mean, if people don't know who Tailor-Made Man is, it was actually Terry Taylor, who actually is still in the business to this day. I believe he's actually a coach. I'm not sure if he's still a coach with NXT or not still, but he was a coach for NXT, you know, the black and gold brand. But Tailor-Made Man was actually Terry Taylor. Ron Simmons, I mean, Ron Simmons to me was severely underrated in his career, man. I think the tag team of Doom, which had Ron Simmons and Butch Reed teaming up as the tag team known as Doom, to me, they were underrated. I think Butch Reed was severely underrated throughout his career, as well as Ron Simmons. Is Ron Simmons a tag team wrestler? Yeah. I mean, majority of his career was tag team wrestling. I mean, him teaming up with Butch Reed when they were in Doom, and then obviously his well-known tag team partner being Bradshaw in the APA, the Acolytes, in their WWE run, especially during the Attitude Era. Phenomenal tag team, man. And Ron Simmons' singles run, I mean, again, it wasn't bad. He actually became World Heavyweight Champion for WCW back in the day. So I feel like Ron Simmons' career was severely underrated. And he was a great athlete, great competitor, and a great wrestler. Cactus Jack versus Sting. Like I stated earlier, man, this was probably one of the matches of the night for me, in my honest opinion. Two big rivals, Cactus Jack and Sting. And Sting, let's face facts, man. Sting, even at that time, was one of the main guys for WCW. You know, he was one of the pillars for WCW throughout his entire career there. I mean, he stayed until they ended up folding when Vince bought the company. But he was, you know, one of the WCW's top guys throughout his WCW run. So to see him go up against Cactus Jack, a.k.a. Mick Foley, a.k.a. Mankind, dude, you know, his Cactus Jack career is synonymous with professional wrestling, even from the time he was in ECW, even times over in Japan and FMW and stuff like that, matches he had with Terry Funk. Legendary career. So just to see Sting and Cactus Jack in the same ring having a match, absolutely phenomenal stuff, man. But Sting ended up getting the win in this match with a clothesline off the top rope. Rick Rude versus Ricky Steamboat. Again, a solid matchup. A 30-minute Iron Man match with Ricky Steamboat becoming victorious in this matchup. And then the main event, Terry Gordy and Dr. Death Steve Williams versus the Steiner Brothers for the WCW Tag Team Championships. It was a great match. I wish we got a concrete winner in that matchup, but that match was brutal, man. Those guys destroyed each other in that ring. And I just wish we got a clear-cut winner. Unfortunately, we did not. And the match ended up ending in a time limit draw. If I had to give Beach Blast 1992 a solid rating from 1 out of 10, I'm going to give it a solid 6, man. I think this was a solid event from top to bottom. I like the way this card was booked. I like the flow of the card. And I'm probably going to have to give it a 6, maybe 6.5 at best. So my Beach Blast 1992, the rating I'm going to give it is probably a 6 or a 6.5 at best for Beach Blast 1992. But this is my review of Beach Blast 1992. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.